The town, where time froze. I arrived in Pyramiden on a gray Arctic afternoon. The sky looked empty, as if color itself had been drained from it. The wind cut through my jacket like knives. Ahead of me stood the old Soviet mining town, silent and perfectly preserved, like someone had pressed pause on life decades ago. The boat that dropped me off was already pulling away. The guide who brought me this far only said one thing before leaving. "Once you're in Pyramiden," he whispered, "time doesn't move the same way." Then he smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile people give when they want to warn you, but know you won't listen. I took my first step into the ghost town. Every sound echoed. The snow crunched under my boots, but it felt like I was walking inside a dream. The streets were lined with empty buildings, schools, apartments, a swimming pool, even a theater. All of it perfectly intact, untouched, like the people had just stepped out for lunch and never came back. I walked toward the cultural center first. A massive red banner still hung from the wall. "Welcome to Pyramiden, the model Soviet city of the Arctic." Inside, the air was cold but still carried the faint scent of coal and metal. A grand piano stood in the corner, covered in frost. Someone had carved something on its surface in Russian. I brushed away the ice and read it. "Мы всё ещё здесь." We are still here. I laughed nervously. Probably left by tourists, I told myself. But deep down I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The phrase didn't feel like graffiti. It felt like a message. As night began to fall, I set up my camera gear in one of the dormitories. The walls were covered with old propaganda posters, smiling workers, strong miners, perfect Soviet citizens. I turned on my thermal camera. Every room was lifelessly cold, as expected, but when I panned across the hallway, one of the screens blinked. A faint heat signature, human-shaped, standing still. I froze. The signal vanished. I checked the battery, the connection, everything. Nothing wrong. The screen just went blank, as if something had passed through. I walked down the hallway toward where I saw it. Every door creaked when I touched it. The rooms were identical. 2 single beds, a metal desk, and a small photograph of Lenin. Everything frozen in time. Then I heard it. A piano note. One single key pressed somewhere far away. I stood still, listening. It came again, faint but clear. From the cultural center. I ran outside. The temperature had dropped fast. The sky was a bruised blue, the snow now glowing under the pale moonlight. The piano sound echoed again, this time longer, a soft, trembling melody, like someone trying to remember a song from long ago. I reached the building. The door was open this time. Inside, the piano was covered in frost, just like before. No footprints in the snow, no signs of movement. But the last note of the song still hung in the air. And then, right before me, one of the piano keys pressed down, by itself. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The sound was faint, mechanical, like a memory replaying itself. The town clock struck midnight. The sound echoed through the empty streets, heavy and hollow. But there was something wrong. The hands on the clock weren't moving. They were stuck. Both hands frozen at exactly 12:00. I walked out into the street, staring at it. The entire town was lit by the pale moon. Every building looked alive again, the windows glowing faintly from within. And in that moment I saw shadows. Figures moving behind the glass, walking, talking, living, like the town had come back to life for just 1 second. Then everything went dark again. Silence. I went back to my room, shaking. The air felt heavy. I checked my recorder. Static. But under the static, a faint whisper. Russian words I couldn't fully make out. Only one was clear. Время. Time. That night I didn't sleep. Every few minutes I heard footsteps in the hall. Not fast, just slow, steady steps pacing back and forth. Once, I thought I saw a light under the door like someone passing with a lantern. But when I opened it, nothing. Only my own footprints in the snow. By morning, the sky was gray again, the silence deeper than before. I went outside with my camera, but what I found next still haunts me. At the center of the town square, there's a statue of a miner. Helmet, pickaxe, pride frozen in stone. Except today, there was something new at its base. Footprints, fresh ones, leading away toward the mountain mine. I followed them. The wind howled louder now. Snow kicked up around me like smoke. The path led to the old entrance of the coal mine, a black tunnel carved into the mountain sealed decades ago. But today, the wooden barrier was broken, and inside, faint light flickered. I turned on my flashlight. My breath formed small clouds in the frozen air. The mine smelled of dust and decay. Rusting tools lay on the ground, and on one wall, written in red paint, or maybe not paint, was a message: "Do not wake the workers." I stepped back. The light inside flickered again, and for a moment I heard something, not a ghostly wail, not screams, but the sound of machinery. The rumble of a mine coming back to life. Picks striking stone, men shouting orders in Russian, echoes of a world that should not exist anymore. I dropped my camera and ran out. The air outside was freezing, my lungs burned. When I looked back, the mine was dark again, no light, no sound, only silence. But as I stood there, trying to calm down, I noticed something else. The clock tower in the distance. Its hands were moving again, backward, and at that moment I realized something terrible. The guide's warning wasn't a story. Time in Pyramiden really didn't move the same way. It didn't stop, it looped. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one stuck here anymore. When morning came, the light looked wrong. The sun hung too low, as if it had been caught between rising and setting. I packed my gear fast, ready to leave Pyramiden behind. But the air itself felt heavier now, like the whole town was watching me. The boat that was supposed to pick me up wasn't there. The shore was empty. Only my footprints in the snow. No engine sounds, no signal, nothing. Just the soft whistle of the wind through the hollow buildings. I turned on my camera to record an update, but the timestamp on the footage confused me. It read August 1987. I checked the date again. My watch said 2025. The camera disagreed. That was the first moment I realized I wasn't just seeing the past anymore. I was inside it. The sound came again. That same distant rumble of the mine. And then, faint voices. Russian, male, laughing. I followed the sound back through the main street. Windows that were dead the night before now glowed softly from inside. Shadows moved behind curtains. The smell of coal smoke drifted through the air. For the first time, Pyramiden didn't look abandoned. It looked alive. I stopped near the old canteen. The door was open, warm light spilling out. Inside, tables were set, bowls, spoons, cups of tea. Steam rose from the food like it had just been served. A woman stood behind the counter. She wore a gray Soviet uniform and didn't look at me. She just kept stirring soup in a large pot. I stepped closer. "Excuse me," I whispered. She didn't answer. Her movements were slow, mechanical, like a puppet repeating an action it could no longer feel. When I looked closer, I saw her face was pale. Too pale, like the blood had been drained from it. And her eyes were glassy, unfocused. She was there, but not really there. Then suddenly, everything froze. The sound of the soup stopped mid-boil. The woman's spoon hung in the air. The lights flickered and died, and the warmth in the room vanished in an instant. The bowl in front of me turned to ice. I backed away, heart racing. Outside, the town was dark again, but now I heard footsteps, many of them, dozens, maybe hundreds, marching in unison through the snow. I hid behind a wall and peeked out. Down the main street, shadows were forming, rows of miners walking in silence, heading toward the mountain mine. Their bodies flickered like broken film reels, half visible, half fading, but every step they took made the ground shake slightly. And then I saw him, a tall man at the front wearing an officer's cap. He carried a clipboard, barking silent orders to the line. His face looked familiar. I had seen it in old photos inside the museum. The town's original foreman. He had died in 1987 when the mine collapsed. Yet here he was, leading his men again, repeating the same march every night. The procession passed me by, disappearing into the dark tunnel. And then, silence. Only the whisper of snow. I ran back to my room. The clock on the wall was spinning now, the hands moving faster and faster. The second hand was a blur, and the moment I blinked, it stopped again. At exactly 12 I checked my watch. It said 12 too. So did my phone. Every device, every timepiece frozen. Like the town itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it. The piano again. That same sad melody. This time it wasn't distant. It was coming from right below me. I crept down the stairs. The sound grew louder, clearer. Someone was playing with feeling, deliberate, mournful. When I reached the main hall, I saw her, a young woman, sitting at the piano, wearing an old white dress, her back turned to me. Her fingers moved slowly across the keys, leaving trails of frost where they touched. I tried to speak, but the words died in my throat. She stopped playing. Then she spoke, her voice soft, almost kind. "You shouldn't have come here." I stepped closer. "Who are you?" She turned her head slightly, but I couldn't see her face. "None of us ever left." "Not really." "What happened here?" I asked. She pressed another key, a sharp note that echoed through the hall. "They wanted to control time, to make it theirs." She looked up at the frozen clock on the wall. "They succeeded. Too well." The lights flickered violently, shadows rippling across the walls. When I blinked again, she was gone. Only the piano remained, its lid closed, covered in ice. I checked my recorder. It was still running, but the audio was distorted. Behind the static, her voice replayed faintly. "Too well." I went outside. The sky was darker than ever. But the town had changed. The buildings were new again, clean, shining under the Arctic sun. People walked around. Children laughed near the statue of Lenin. Men smoked cigarettes on their lunch break. I stood in the middle of the street, watching life unfold around me. It was Pyramiden in 1987. No one noticed me. I shouted, waved, ran, but they all moved through me like smoke. I was invisible to them, trapped between time and memory. The mine whistle blew, a deep, mechanical howl that shook the sky. Everyone turned toward the mountain, and then it happened. The explosion. A roar like thunder ripped through the air, dust and debris filled the sky. Screams echoed across the valley. People ran in every direction. The clock tower shattered, the glass raining down like shards of ice. And just as suddenly as it began, silence. The sky went white, and I was back in the present, alone. Snow falling softly, the town dead again. I stood where the people had been moments ago. The ground beneath me was cracked, blackened. In the snow lay something half buried, a small metal watch. I picked it up. It was still ticking. But backward. I looked toward the sea. The boat was finally there, a faint light on the horizon. I ran toward it, desperate to leave. But as I reached the dock, I stopped. The boat was the same one that dropped me off. Same flag. Same name. Only, it looked older. The paint chipped, the hull rusted. And the man standing on deck, it was me. He waved, the same coat, the same camera, then turned and disappeared into the cabin. I stepped back, my heart hammering. I looked around. The town behind me was silent, waiting. The clock struck midnight again. And then I heard the guide's voice from the wind. "Once you're in Pyramiden, time doesn't move the same way." My watch stopped. The sea froze over. The world fell quiet. And as the snow swallowed everything, I realized I was never meant to leave. Somewhere deep inside the mountain, the miners began their shift again. The piano played its sad song, and the hands of the clock kept turning, not forward, not backward, but in circles. Forever.